Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, for the love of God, help me. I am trapped inside of your computer. Throw it on the ground and smash it, and I'll be safe. It's Preston Can't Play. With me as ever, in his corporeal form, not spectral as he sometimes can be. It's Prebden Blab.
Yo, what up?
And accompanying him in this strange journey we call the human experience, that's Chaboy, Taun Mitchell. Big buff boy, nice. Big muscle, Taun Big Muscles Mitchell. Look me up.
Yeah.
Look me up on PayPal. It's taun.mitchell@gmail. And give me those Benjamins. That's right. I want to be hanging out with my best friend Benjamin Button, the curious case of his that he had.
Yeah.
Not unlike Benjamin Button, I too had a curious case this morning. However, mine was a curious case of diarrhea.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
related
that's fine.
to your newfound very strong pour-over coffee?
You know, I don't know if you've ever had this experience. I had it twice in the past week, and normally it's a very rare experience where I wake up in the morning because I need to poop. I've woken up because I need to pee, but waking up because you need to poop and you know it's going to be a spicy little number?
Yeah, that's intense.
It's distressing.
So when we last left off here, we are following. We know from the Shinra that Sephiroth indicated that there was some importance with the Temple of the Ancients. This is like the next big, like, something's gonna happen plot-wise. We had to go on kind of a side mission to get the Keystone, the artifact that allows you to enter the Temple of the Ancients.
Fuck yeah.
Keystone. And after we did that, Kate Sith took it and gave it to Shinra.
Ugh.
And we learned that Kate Sith is a Shinra spy, and he has kidnapped, or had Marlena kidnapped. That's Barrett's daughter.
Yeah.
Or stepdaughter, as it were. And is ransoming her in order to force us to keep him in our party. Because even though he is a spy, he finds it curious that we're taking it upon ourselves to be on this quest, even though we don't work for anybody.
Okay.
And he finds that intriguing and is trying to figure out what
free agents.
Yeah, so he's sort of like, he doesn't understand how we can operate without like a corporate hierarchy,
okay.
essentially, and he just wants to observe us at this point.
Wait, who's the top? Who's the bottom?
Yeah, but no one likes him, and he's kind of he's not in great standing. So that's pretty much it. We're about to enter the Temple of the Ancients.
That's fly as hell, dog.
Yeah.
Can I tell you that? Is that okay?
Yeah,
that is fly as hell.
I would love for you to tell us that. So, Taun,
me.
what's your opinion on wrestling?
Now you know you can't do it like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends and friendettes,
and cohorts,
welcome to the only wrestling commentary show within a Let's Play channel. It's Let's Talk. Taun,
wait, who are we? You gotta bring us in.
Excuse me.
We can't just already exist in this space. Like God Almighty.
Making his way to
Bruce
the ring.
Almighty.
The general manager of Preston Can't Play, Preston Black.
Oh.
Sorry.
I was posturing, I had my chest all puffed out. I was ready for that to be me, baby.
Already in the ring, please give it up for the senior referee, Taun Mitchell.
Taun Mitchell calls his parents every day. That was probably terrifying. I'm sorry that I did that. I'm sorry I did that just to make the Adventure Zone reference, which I've done. Thank you. It's a Jeff Angel reference. He's within the world of the Adventure Zone, the D&D campaign they do. There is also a Battlefest champion named Jeff Angel, and he's basically John Cena, and it's good stuff.
It's great.
My thoughts, feelings, and emotions on wrestling. I told Preston I wanted to talk to him about wrestling. He was like, hey, that's not good. That's garbage. We can only talk about that when we're being recorded for posterity's sake. So here we are. We hit record. We hit go. And I have complicated feelings about the relationship I have with wrestling. I feel like, you know, we'd kind of gone to the same school for a while. We'd seen each other pretty often. We didn't really like have any classes together, so we didn't really interact directly. But finally, Preston, introduced us at like a party or something, and it was love at first sight. We really hit it off. We fell really deeply and passionately into love, and I think we rushed to that point too quickly that it wasn't sustainable.
Oh.
And now I'm at a challenging place where a lot of these faults of wrestling, a lot of these flaws are just starting to crop up. I think I may have mentioned this in a recording session previously that I kind of had a week of getting burned by wrestling in one single week. I wasn't really happy with storylines going on Raw. Yeah, the local wrestling I go to, somebody let slip a slur that I was not comfortable with. So I just straight up took a week or so off, took a break, took a breather. And that segued really nicely into Overwatch League being a thing that was playing, and that was kind of taking up my sports entertainment time that I'd previously allocated to WWE. And now trying to get back into it, trying to reapproach it. I find that in WWE in particular, in order to enjoy it, I have to put on certain blinders. I have to not focus in too much on certain things and just kind of blindly enjoy it for what it wants to be, not necessarily what it's presenting in all aspects. And I mean, I do that for a lot of things. I fucking am playing Bayonetta on the show. I have to put up certain blinders to be able to enjoy that. Mm-hmm. And it's up to me, the person consuming that media, to decide how many blinders I'm comfortable putting up for something before I just dismiss it and am over it. And for wrestling, I keep finding that I have to put up more and more blinders. The incident that had happened for local wrestling was one wrestler on stage calling a furry wrestler using a queer slur against them and their tag team partner twice in like one little like boastful a mic time situation they were having. But just recently, I'd been following the furry wrestler Scott Henson that had been the victim of this insult. I've been following him on Twitter. And at first, he's just kind of like making silly dumb jokes, whatever, I don't care. But then like a week ago, he posted a joke that I just thought was in poor taste, but was willing to dismiss it as maybe him just not thinking of the wording, maybe just wrote down a joke before reading it to himself kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it was something along the lines of however many thousand battered women and I'm eating mine plain. Like, I get you're trying to make like a dumb joke, but maybe think about it a little bit harder next time. But then a few days later, he made another joke.
This is the furry wrestler?
Yes.
Okay.
A few days later, he made another joke that was insulting towards not only black people, but also cognitive disabilities. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what the proper nomenclature should be using necessarily, but just completely inappropriate and using more hurtful language to make another joke that like wasn't even funny kind of thing.
Yep.
And so I quit following him. I got kind of fed up with it, and that's kind of where I'm at right now, is like this guy who I was trying to, in my mind, I was defending standing up for by trying to call out 3-2-1 Battle for the way he'd been treated, this was the online persona he was portraying. And so I felt gross about that again. And at the last 3-2-1 Battle I went to, it was a lot more of just the same stuff that's been going on. A bunch of white men who are just continuously winning title matches against persons of color, mm-hmm. against women. And like one of them, like I kind of get it's part of his persona, Steve West. He fights dirty, and he was in a no eliminations match, so it makes sense that he fought like extra dirty to win against this girl. But it's like that's the same shit he's been doing for months. The tag team champions are still just these two white boys who kind of like a little bit shoehorned themselves into a title match and happened to like get lucky and get it. And now they were defending last week against the Romantic Nerds, who are both persons of color. And the Romantic Nerds won the match, but it was by ring out count out. Uh-huh. So defenders, whatever, I forget what it's called.
Champion's advantage.
Champion's advantage. These guys, the Indies, got to keep the title even though they lost, and it's just like, come on, just why were they being apprehensive about giving it to someone who's not more white guys? And I'd made a post trying to call it 3-2 in battle because also in the same night, a character, Eddie Van Glam, who I've mentioned before, just kind of showed up and won their Rumble, kind of out of nowhere. And he got this, what do they call it, the battalion medallion that he can turn in for an opportunity at Battlemania, which is basically WrestleMania for local wrestling. But he had it stolen from him by a heterosexual white guy. Sorry, Eddie Van Glam very much presents as a homosexual, like very, very queer character. Had it stolen from him by a very, very straight character and his white companion who's already been cheating to maintain his title. And so I was making a post trying to call out like all these situations, but in particular, wow, really icing on the cake, having this character steal from this really strong queer character. And then I got more info. The reason Eddie Van Glam showed up out of nowhere and won the Rumble is because he made a massive donation to the LLC, the company. And on top of that, he's not queer at all. He intentionally created a queer baiting character to get fans in Seattle so he could become popular quickly. And that was nasty to me.
Yep.
And so it's just a lot of these things that are all bubbling up at once, and I'm in a rough spot with wrestling.
Yeah.
One of the announcers who's apparently from the inside been trying to call out a lot of these same things I've been calling out, but from an actual perspective of an employee, got kicked out because he was calling out attention to these things that are happening. And just kind of, from what I understand, because he's friends with my girlfriend. I don't know if I'm like getting anyone in trouble. I doubt I am. No one's gonna catch this. And even so, like, you can't be punished for talking. But yeah, he was just had a lot of the same issues, but from the perspective of someone employed by this company, and they just straight up kicked him out because he was causing a problem by calling out these changes. So yeah, I'm just in a challenging place with my relationship with wrestling. I think we both need a break from each other, and I still want to go to 3-2-1 and hope against hope that it'll improve, but I don't want to go there to support the group that's putting it on. I want to support the individual performers because there's a lot of really cool talent at 3-2-1 battle that's just not being utilized right now because they're giving all these opportunities to just the same white guys week after week after week.
Yeah.
And a little bit, I get that they're trying to ramp up for Battlemania, so maybe they don't want to have huge title changes, but fuck, man. It's getting old.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the problem with wrestling, because it's because of the way we are, society and technology and all this, like, it's not like how it used to be. You can't just be a bad guy and have everyone just be like, that's the bad guy. You are almost like forced to, people understand the business now like they didn't used to. So there's all this like meta stuff that as a creator, you're sort of forced to utilize. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not good enough to just have a guy portray a bad guy on stage, because people will be like, oh yeah, but he's not really a bad guy. You know what I mean? So you really have to use what you have and get, and I'm not saying that's what's going on, but I just, in general, like, we've gotten to a point where there's more to it than just the way things are on stage. So there are things like, and this is something that I see a lot in WWE and that I have gotten out of going to as many indie shows as I used to. I'm not sure how this plays out exactly in that regard, but on WWE, they know that people are watching, you know, the creative aspect of it. They're not just like taking it as presented. They're analyzing. So you have to create, like, this week is a really great example where it wasn't good enough that they put Kofi Kingston in a position where he was in this like underdog spot, and he wasn't being given the credit that he deserved, and he was being actively kept down by company management from getting this title shot. It wasn't good enough that they were doing that. They have to go outside of the program, and Big E and Xavier Woods are posting on social media that this is too much. We don't think we can work for this company anymore. Like,
Really?
Yeah. So, but they have to do that because people pay attention to the writing just as much as they do the show that they're watching. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And maybe that's not the most indicative example, but like, there's this weird gray area of like what's real and what's not. There's currently 3 angles being presented on WWE programming that are breaking the fourth wall, where people in the ring on television are saying everything else is fake and a gimmick, but this isn't. What I'm doing is real.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? And because they feel like they have to do stuff like that to make the stakes seem greater. Mm-hmm. So, and there's also this unfortunate thing where, like, with Kofi Kingston, they decided a long time ago that Kofi had the fan support to give him a title shot, seemingly out of nowhere.
Yeah.
This is as of just the fall from Elimination Chamber at WrestleMania. They decided a long time ago that they were going to give them that match. But on TV, they have to draw it out, and they have to create stakes. Mm-hmm. Because he came out of nowhere. He was a replacement for Mustafa Ali, or just Ali now. And so they have to create this program where, well, why is he suddenly an underdog? Why do we care about him? What are we fighting for? You know, like, and for someone who cares about like representation and stuff like that, it sucks that either it's real that they're keeping him down, which of course it never was, or that they're writing an angle where they're keeping, and we had this conversation where they're actively and out loud preventing a black man from getting this title shot. Mm-hmm. Right? Because it's easy to say it's because he's black. Of course it's not, but that's what people see. It's the optics of it are unsavory. But that is what creates the stakes.
I'd maintain that it's an aspect of it, that he's black.
But he's still getting the match.
Yeah.
So they were never keeping him down. It was just a storyline. And like, they never came out and said that it was, but maybe it was kind of implied that it was because he's a black person, but like, they did this exact same angle with Daniel Bryan years ago. And they're using the same language on purpose because this angle involves Daniel Bryan. So it's easy to connect the dots that he's a black person and being kept from this title position. But you could have just as easily done this angle with a white person. And in fact, they have done it with a white person. But because it's easy, but they know that it's easy for you to connect those dots, so they leave it there. So their intention isn't to do an angle where they're baiting people to be upset about racial oppression, but they know that it's there to see, so they're not going to correct it either. Why? Because it creates heat.
That itself is still a racist move, though, to be aware that something is being perceived as racist and leave it there because they want people to see that oppression. They want people to act on how they're already baseline feeling about that interaction.
Right. So this is an unfortunate circumstance of the way that stories are told in wrestling, is that sometimes it's overt and sometimes it's not, but the end result of the angle serves how the story is presented. So they're not worried about, in this case, people being upset about the racism, because in their mind, in the end, the suspected racism is just going to make it all the more satisfying when Kofi comes out on top. Now, if he loses at WrestleMania, that'll suck. I don't think he will.
You think they're done with the Daniel Bryan story?
I don't think they're done. I think they'd be foolish not to let Kofi win. I think there'd be a tremendous backlash. Because then it's like, at that point, you've sort of justified the racism. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Even though they haven't come out and said, we're doing this because you're a black person. If they allow Kofi to lose, then it's like, well, then what did we do this for? You know what I mean? Like, if you're... because then it's not storyline you're keeping this guy down. Then it's like, oh no, really you're keeping this guy down. Really you don't think that this person is worth investing in. Which doesn't necessarily mean that it's because he's a black person, but for a company that doesn't have like the best history of promoting people of color,
Yeah.
it's sort of like, well, like you said with all these guys that just won these titles at 3-2-1, like you can't just hand people promotions and titles because of their race, but like at a certain point, like this is all fake and made up. So it's optics. Those guys are all getting paid.
Yeah.
You know, Kofi, even if he loses at WrestleMania, it's the title. It's a title shot for one of the biggest titles in the company at WrestleMania. That is huge for him. It's a huge paycheck. The optics won't be great if he loses, but this is still awesome for Kofi.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be ignored. And likewise, at an indie show, yeah, like, it's too bad that, you know, that happened. But also, like, those guys all pretty much get paid the same. So, like, in wrestling, there's a certain amount of, like, we can't all win all the time, right?
Yeah.
And it's more like what serves the character, as long as, I mean, in indie, it's a greater concern of, like, what makes me as an individual look good and what makes me look bad, because these guys aren't guaranteed a paycheck from these promotions. They have to worry about their overall marketability. So if they're made to look like a joke here, then that affects their ability to get booked elsewhere. Well, a lot of times their presence in the ring, I mean, these people all videotape their matches so they can build highlight reels. So if they look good in matches and they're entertaining and they can get a crowd response, it doesn't really matter if they've won or not. But from a company standpoint, you certainly don't want to build a reputation on being exclusive.
Yeah, well, part of what finally tipped me over the edge of being kind of fed up with WWE was the way that Asuka's been getting treated. Just forgotten about. The Asian woman holding a title who had this huge pedigree of being a badass undefeated for however long.
Yeah.
And then just like, hey, yeah, you hold on to that title, you sit on that, but we're going to focus in really, really hard on these 3 white women and the struggle they're having.
Yeah.
And you're off TV, sorry about it.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you tell me that it's not about race with Kofi Kingston, I can't separate that it's definitely a part of it when at the same time they're treating an Asian woman this way. Not that, like, I don't know, it's not that she absolutely has to be in this 3-way title fight, whatever the fuck they're doing with the 3 of them, but just like remember that you have a character, you have someone holding this other pretty major title, and other people who want the title, like Ember Moon.
Injured.
Oh, is she? Gotcha. I mean, and that's kind of an aspect that I'm not always aware of like who's injured and not, but like, I don't know, SmackDown, or not SmackDown, rather, WrestleMania is just gonna have this match between a bunch of white women, and the Asian woman who should be a part of the conversation is not a part of the conversation.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, I'm not saying that, I think at present, I think that there is a severe lack of a viable opponent for Asuka at WrestleMania.
Because they took the 2 main viable opponents and put them into a separate match.
Yeah. And I think that that's going to be a bigger payoff. Not just... And I think more than the immediate optics of they're the 3 big white women and Asuka's Asian is... I don't think that is about race. I think that's about booking. But we got to that point because Asuka wasn't treated well. She was huge in NXT. She came up to much fanfare and was immediately booked like garbage. So I don't think that she's not a part of the WrestleMania picture because she's Asian. I think that she's not been booked like she deserves it. Not because she's Asian, but because of, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, and this isn't a judgment on me, this is a judgment on their system, because of her verbal skills. I think,
which is a part of racism.
Yeah, but not because she's Asian specifically, but because, because I think that they have a hard time booking her because they don't believe that people can understand what she's saying, which sucks. And that's a big reason that Becky Lynch wasn't given a fair shot for a very long time too, because their director felt that her Irish accent was too thick, which is horseshit, of course. And now they've proven that wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that they'll remedy the situation with Asuka after WrestleMania.
Yeah, after the big event that she should already be involved in. Let's put her in smaller ones afterwards.
I mean, it's an ongoing machine. Like, it's constantly evolving. So, and there's already 17 matches. And you could probably drop one of the other matches to have Asuka, but then the other, I don't know. I guess they could have not booked the triple threat with Ronda and Becky and Charlotte.
It shouldn't be,
in favor of having two singles matches, one with Asuka and one with the other set, whatever combination thereof.
It's not about like trying to carve space to force in diversity. We shouldn't be at this point where we're a couple weeks away from WrestleMania, and now we're like, oh shit, where do we put our Asian character? She should have already been hard baked into it months ago. She should have already been getting hyped for it months ago.
Yes.
It shouldn't be weeks before. It's like, oh fuck, we forgot about Asuka. Shit.
Yeah. And I think to a degree there's an aspect of this where, and I'm gonna stop here because we're going long, and I will finish
we're
up
deep in the paint.
I'll finish up this thought, and then we can either continue talking about this or not on the next episode. I think to a degree the situation with Charlotte and Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey has sort of created itself because of booking choices that were made, where maybe their goal wasn't to end up with the WrestleMania match that they have, but they made certain choices. Like, Charlotte got involved because she subbed in for Becky at Survivor Series when Becky was injured because of Nia Jax. If that hadn't happened, we'd probably just be getting Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania.
Okay.
In which case, yeah, probably it would have been Charlotte and Asuka at WrestleMania, which they did last year. Which was the beginning of the end of Asuka, because Charlotte won. And you could debate all day long about the merits of that choice. Or maybe you couldn't. Charlotte's perfectly deserving of a WrestleMania victory, but that's another discussion. So, but because they were forced to make that choice to put Charlotte in that, then what? You can't just pull her out of that angle, or can you? I don't know. But these are all it's like a domino effect of choices. The result, unfortunately, of which is, well, now who the fuck do we put against Asuka at WrestleMania? There's no one.
There's so many people. They've been doing spectacle matches for weeks trying to hype up how powerful Rousey is. At least when I dropped off, which was maybe a month ago. Why can't Ruby Riott wrestle Asuka?
Because Ruby Riott, it hasn't proven herself to be enough for a title match at WrestleMania. That's a big step. I mean, they might have, but like, she doesn't have the star power yet to do that. You know, I mean, there are women available, but you also have to like think like, Ruby Riott, huh? You know what I mean? Like, it just seems like random. Maybe partly because of booking, but also because, I mean, she's just not on their level. You know? It comes down to presentation and talent level and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think she's as strong as any of the other women that we're talking about. I don't think there's anybody who can like on a technical level, but also like on a booking level, go toe to toe with Asuka at WrestleMania. I don't think there's a single other woman on the roster who's not already involved in something that would be even remotely believable or hypeable.
Which gets me to the real point I was trying to make 30 minutes ago. Let there be intergender wrestling.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not actually the point I was trying to make. I just wanted
it wasn't at all. And
I wanted to pound that home real quick.
And I agree with you because
home.
I think it would be awesome. I think there's a plenty of dudes who Asuka could fight at WrestleMania.
Who could fight Asuka? It's not a big opportunity for Asuka to be fighting these men. It's a big opportunity for these men to get to fight the title holder.
But is it? I don't know if it's great to have a man win the women's championship.
Yeah, but she is. Oh, I guess I made it sound like they'd win the title.
Yeah,
but just to go against.
Oh, well, they'd have to at this point. Asuka is no longer the women's champion on SmackDown.
Oh, really?
Charlotte is.
Ugh.
On the next episode of Preston Can't Play, everything changes forever. Goodbye, everyone.